Hello everybody. Today, this is in this first video of our revision chapter lecture. We will be starting about the history. As we all know that the history starts from prehistoric period, and from this period we move to the modern history. This level in this level we learn about ancient, medieval history, modern history. The ancient history starts from prehistory and go back to Satavahanas and post-Gupta age, first post-Gupta age, Chalukyas, Harsha, and from 750 to 1000 AD, we see the start of medieval period, and from 1700 we see the start of modern 1500, I think 1500 we see modern. But before going towards this topic, we should understand that how it is created, how it is written. So the evolution of the history in Indian perspective starts with four views, and the four views are the colonial view, the Marxist view, the nationalist view, and the non-political view. Let us start from the first heading, that is colonial view. Under this view, we see that why was there need, first let us, let us understand the question that why it was needed that we should that there should be a history which should be written by the colonialists, right? And the colonists of the India or Britishers. So first we need to understand that why there was a need to the history of that why there was a need to was written by the colonialists. We know that Britishers were ruling all over the India, and to rule over the India according to the laws of India, customs, they need to understand the history of India at that time. So the first step in this we see that 1784. In 1784 we see that the formation of the Royal Asiatic Society of Bengal. Series of books were written and translated by the colonists, by the Britishers, to understand about the history of India. And the example of such books is that B.A. Smith, B.A. Smith, he wrote early history of India. James Mill, history of British India. Over a period of time, we also see that archaeological survey of India was established. The person who established was Alexander Cunningham. After ASI was established, focus was developed on archaeology as science. So, after the formation of Archaeological Survey of India, Britishers moved to archaeology to construct the history of India. Therefore, the history of India started from the colonialist view, and we see that Many books and Manusmriti, for example, was translated to English by Warren Hastings. We see that Manusmriti translated to English by Warren Hastings. Similarly, Max Muller and William Jones is also contributed into the translation of various books of India. For example, Abhigyan Sakuntalam Abhi- was translated to English by William Jones. He also propagated the theory of origin of RNs. Who gave the theory of origin of RNs? William Jones. And this theory was supported by another person. He was Max Muller. Now, if we specifically look at to the nature of colonial writings, we see that there was generalization of history. Ancient Indian lacked sense of history. So, in the nature of the writings of colonialists, they wrote that ancient India lacked sense of history. They wanted to make point that ancient Indian people didn't know how to write history. They also wrote that India had no culture of its own. Native population was engraved in spiritualism and lacked scientific temper. These were the few points which were propagated by the colonialists to demean to keep Indian people below the British people. They also tried to justified justified the colonial rule by propagating the theory of ancient India, medieval India, and modern India. And in each this in each this section of the history, they laid stress on the foreign invasion. They wanted to make point that foreign invasion was prevalent in India from since ancient times, and India was continuously ruled by foreign invaders. So the invasion of Britishers was justified. They wanted to justify this point. Now we move to the another approach, which is nationalist approach. Under this approach, we see that when Indian people saw that Britishers are writing the history according to themselves, so few writers such as R.G. Bhandarkar, Vishwakasi Rajwade, Devdutt Ramkrishna Bhandarkar, and Hemchand Ramkrishna Bhandarkar, they all wrote about the Indian history, and they wrote various histories such as, for example, R.G. Bhandarkar wrote the history of Satavahanas. These are the important points which can be asked in history in prelims. So let's revise them correctly. So R.G. Bhandarkar, he wrote the history of Satavahanas. He wrote the history of Vaishnavism. Vishwanath Kasi Rajwade, he wrote the history of Marathi language. He wrote the history of Marathi language. Devdutt Ramkrishna Bhandarkar, he wrote epigraphy and Ashokan history. He wrote Ashokan. And Raichand, Hemchand Rai Chaudhary, he wrote the history of Mahabharata. Wrote history of Mahabharata. Along with these writers, we see that K. A. Nilkant Shastri and K. P. Jaiswal. Along with these writers, we see that K.A. Nilkant Shastri and K.P. Jaiswal. These also were the prominent supporters of nationalist approach, and they also wrote a few important history like K.A. Jaiswal, K.A. Nilkant Shastri. He wrote history of South India, and K.P. Jaiswal he wrote the history of Hindu polity. Now let's move to the nature of the nationalist writing. What are the features of nationalist writing? What they included into their nationalist writing? So the first point under this is reconstruction of Indian history. They reconstructed the Indian history जो कि कॉलोनियल हिस्ट्री से बिल्कुल अलग थी. तो पहला पॉइंट हमारा है रिकंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ इंडियन history. Second point, we see that they gave rationalist views, means they gave equal view what was appropriate. They wrote no propaganda, they just wrote what was rationalist, and they also wrote about social reforms and revivalism. We see that these two things happened because in the colonial view we saw that the Britishers they tried to portray Indian people like they were backward, they didn't know about the social reforms. So the nationalist writers they try to include this particular history in their writings. The third point is that they criticize the foreign authors, the foreigners who try to write the Indian history. They criticize those people on the basis of the fact that these people were not indigenous and how they could give a rationalist view on Indian history. Now, next point we see that these people focused on indigenous dynasties. We see that the Britishers they focused on foreign invasions, but these people they focused on indigenous dynasties. They tried to give a holistic explanation to the indigenous dynasties. The next point we see that they negate the role of foreign invasions. In their writings, they negated or tried to keep less amount of explanation of the foreign invasions. For example, Alexander. Sikandar was not discussed in their writings. The next is they wrote about the ancient Indian institutions and also about the political structures. So they wrote about the ancient Indian institutions and political structures of that time, such as republican institutions, where republic form of government was established in that time. They tried to include that these things in their writings, and they holistically covered the South Indian dynasties, which Britishers didn't cover properly. They also covered South Indian dynasties. In the next view, we see the non-political history. In non-political history, we see that the writers such as D.D. Kosambi, the prominent writer of this, he wrote about the religion and philosophy. He gave the materialistic interpretation of Indian history and stages of social and economical development. He didn't write about the political and administrative history. So, under this, we only read the non-political history. Marxist history is not at that much discussed, so we will be not revising that. Now, after this video, we will be learning about how history is constructed, how sources are defined, and how these sources are used to write the good history of the country or of the region. Thank you.